Well, to me, wanting implies separation. So as soon as I want something, it's outside of me and I'm chasing it and I'm pulling and trying to like grasp at it. And so it's about owning it. And literally on the Aikido mat, I remember so many times where I'll do a technique really well. And my partner will go, whoa, like that one was great. What did you do? And each time I've been asked that question, the answer was the same. It was, I believed I could do it. I didn't second guess it. I just was like, yeah, here we go. I'm doing this.
I'm Elysia Skye, and this is the Brilliance Method podcast. Through mindful, motivational, and often hilarious conversations with thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives, you'll discover new ways to create your life on purpose. Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Brilliance Method. Today, we are hanging out with the exceptionally amazing Anne O'Brien, who is so near and dear to me, not just as a friend, but also a mentor for many years. And I'm so thrilled that you get to know her today and learn from her today. Anne is an Aikido teacher and a spiritual guide, and she began both Aikido and her intuitive training in the 1990s. And she went on to study yoga, holistic health, and conscious relationships. And since 2004, she has supported clients with one-on-one coaching, energy healing, as well as classes in intuitive and personal development, many which I have taken more than once. You can learn more about her at anneobrienliving.com, and this link will be in the podcast description below. Hello, darling. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Elysia. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I'm so thrilled you're here. And you, of course, teach a class in the Brilliance Method, my online course. I look up to you. I trust you. I love you. And I know that you feel the same way about me. So it's just such perfect timing to have you here, especially with your new book that just came out.
Hey.
You know, you have a really fun and interesting background, and I want to get into it a little bit because not everybody would assume, okay, Aikido and an intuitive practice, also an author. You're a very creative being and you're such a light, you're such a joy. So, Anne, where did you really jump in? Just like feet first, head first into this is my life. I am a creative being. I'm an intuitive being and I am going for it. Because some people are scared to do that.
That's a great question. I think there's two parts to that answer. One would be, when was I living as a creative being? Like pretty much my whole life. I don't think I ever was not doing that. But when did I start having fun and owning it? That's another question.
Okay.
As my teenage years into my early 20s, I was pretty overwhelmed because I am a very sensitive person and I didn't have anybody to teach me about that, which is why I got into the intuitive work and the spiritual work and practices. So I would say, as you read in my bio, in the 1990s, late 1990s, I started both the intuitive training and I started Aikido. And those two things were things that helped me realize, oh, I have a center. I have an energetic field that belongs to me. And some of what I feel doesn't belong in here. And I can own this. And that made it a lot more fun to engage with the world outside of me. It was just trying to figure out how to handle that overwhelm.
Yeah. And in your book, which I've read cover to cover, including out loud, I'm the voice of her audiobooks. Thank you for that privilege, by the way. You do talk about your Aikido journey and how you began it and then went back to it, and that it always continued to call you back in different ways. And I love your reflection on, I was always that way. When did I really own it? And I think that's the piece that most people are wanting more of, is wanting to own it and embody it and live it fully. And you mentioned a center. So do you feel like you have to understand your energetic center in order to embody your creativity?
I think it's way easier. I think almost every creative person is highly sensitive. And, a lot of creative people are channeling and they're, expressing energies that are in the field around them, not only their own emotions or inspiration, but they're kind of picking up on stuff. And so if you can find your center, yeah, it's way better in my opinion.
Okay. So how do we do that?
A lot of different ways to do that. As I mentioned, I've taken these two different paths that to me, it's like doing Western medicine and doing holistic medicine. They kind of get to different things, or doing therapy and doing psychic energy healing. They get to different things. So I did the intuitive training that I've done. So I learned specifically how to ground myself energetically. So that's through like sitting with my eyes closed. Many of your listeners may be familiar with these techniques. Closing my eyes, imagining a tree trunk, sending the stress and stuff that doesn't belong to me into the earth, calling in my energy from wherever it's been that I've disowned or forgotten or scattered, and then learning how to clear what's not mine. So that's one angle on it. And then I have always been interested in more the embodiment level too. So that's why the Aikido, yoga, dancing, something like that has always been in my world. And the way that I learn to move my body, let's say in Aikido in relationship to other people, if I don't have a center, I fall on the ground. Like I get clobbered basically. So I have to have it. Those are my quick answers to that.
I love that. So let's just wrap our minds around what is a center. What does it mean to be centered? Can you paint a picture of what that is or what that feels like?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, in Aikido, the center is below the belly button, and in the Eastern arts, it's sometimes called the Tantien, or, just would call it the center. Everything moves from there. So if I were to try to throw I'm 5'3", by the way, which, they might not know looking at me on the screen, but I took one of my Aikido tests was a 6'4" guy, and I can handle that because I'm using my center, which is moving from my belly, my hips, my breath, not just muscles, not just trying to use my strength.
It would also be like our third chakra, right? Our energy center, our power center. Is that accurate?
Or even second. Well, the third is above the belly button. In the Eastern arts, your center is considered more below the belly button.
Okay. So our second chakra.
Second chakra, which, on the, physical level, that's where reproduction happens in the body. That's where creativity happens on a real physiological, biological level. So I think it makes sense that everything comes from there.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. So even a quick exercise if people are feeling ungrounded or uncentered, what Anne just said is just you close your eyes and you visualize yourself rooted and grounded in, and then just focus on that area in your body. And a color connected to the second chakra is like a clementine orange color, a beautiful bright orange color. So you can almost just visualize or imagine that beautiful color around there. And then moving up into your third chakra a little bit higher above the belly button is like a lemon yellow. So it helps me to visualize sometimes what those colors are. Even when I'm speaking, if I'm about to go on stage, if I feel any stage fright or any of that, I'll just illuminate some of those chakras and then bring in that, sapphire blue right in my throat. And I think that helps. Our imagination is so powerful and it's so connected to our psychic work, our intuitive work, and even our physical healing. A comment you made earlier when you were describing everything was energy that might not be yours. And I think that really trips people up because they don't realize how much energy that they're carrying in their body or in their own field that isn't theirs, that is stifling them.
Yeah. And there's this idea that, just ask your body and you'll get the answer. Well, yes and no. If your body is filled with your own vibration, yes, you can ask your body and get the answer. But if your body is filled with all kinds of other stuff, which can include energy from other people, emotions, thoughts, programs, projections, or even on a physical level, bacteria, viruses, pathogens, parasites, who knows what answer you're going to get and who's telling you that answer.
That's a good point. I want to talk about the book. And before we talk about the book, I'm just going to pull some cards for you. When we got on today, you were like, we're wearing the same color. I'm like, we are. And I never wear this color.
Wow. Well, I was clear this was the right color,
I just knew. We set an intention before we started just to shine some bright light. But I want you to say when. We're going to pull two cards. You're going to pull one and I'm going to pull one. Okay, say when you feel it.
When?
Okay. Okay, I'm going to pull one and I'm going to pull a second one. These are fun. Okay, so when I pull cards for my guests, it's for you and it's also for the audience listening. Okay. So when I read Anne her cards, I want you listening and watching to go, how does this impact or affect my life? How does this influence choices that I'm thinking about too? Beautiful. Okay. So we got two here. One, you pulled, it says align your life. Okay. What is not aligned or needs change? And you are so no nonsense, Anne, and you are so good. And I know this took a lot of work to get here in your life when you did of like, that doesn't work for me, right? And you're really clear on your requirements. And you talk a lot about that in your different books too. And you're such a beautiful communicator. And I know those conscious relationships, including friendships, are so important to you. So as you continue to evolve spiritually and of course, emotionally and in the physical world, all the things that we're doing, there will still be some pieces that need to change, that need to shift, right? And just because we are a teacher, a spiritual teacher, a martial arts teacher, or, anyone just doing anything in the physical world here, there's always stuff that we want to tweak and adjust, and there's so many moments of satisfaction. And I hope that most of our lives are satisfied.
Literally, I feel that's the right card. I feel increasingly like, nope, that doesn't work for me. Even it's like a question you asked me a minute ago. I was like, I don't want to talk about that question. I'm over that stuff.
I love it. You're so good. So what a great example. So keep doing more of that. And then this next card, which is exactly what we're doing today, share your voice. Okay. So this feels like some past life stuff. Come out of the cave, persecution, expression. Okay. So more of that. Are you planning to do any, I don't know if it's a book tour, but like speaking or workshops around this work? Because I feel like that'll really resonate with people. Okay.
So far, August and September, but we will be adding more.
Fantastic. Okay. So definitely check out these events that are coming up very soon and see what you can attend. So the dance of love, mastering your relationships through Aikido wisdom. First of all, what a beautiful marriage of topics, relationships and Aikido wisdom. When you read the book, you're like, oh my gosh, like the metaphor, the story, the technique, like the techniques of martial arts techniques combined with relationship communication strategies. It's so perfect. Like I loved reading every second of it. Where did this come from?
Thank you. Well, I've been a dedicated Aikido practitioner and I started to get the downloads when I was in class and training and my teacher would say something and all these light bulbs would go off like, oh, this applies to my parenting. This applies to my client. This applies to my love life. This applies to my family relationships. And, I go and dictate notes on my phone after training so many times. And that started in 2018. And then some years went by, the whole dojo shut during COVID and it kind of went on the back burner. I published 2 other books. And then in 2022, got back to Aikido teaching, training, got my black belt and got back to writing this book full speed ahead.
Wow. What would you say to anyone who doesn't have a martial arts background or a specific martial arts interest who is curious about reading your book?
I don't think it matters, because everybody has relationships and there are some Japanese words and concepts and things, but I explain everything in layman's terms. So if somebody doesn't have martial arts background, I always give an example of, here's what happens in Aikido practice, but let's translate that to what might happen with your in-laws. And here's how that would look in this scenario. And I think anybody could benefit with any kind of relationships too.
Totally. And, I don't have an Aikido background, but I do have some background in karate and Taekwondo. And everything made sense. There might have been terms or moves that I wasn't familiar with, but as far as, being on the mat and working with your partner and just the give and flow of energy that's there and the dynamics of the energy. And so much of what you talk about too is around a masculine and a feminine dynamic. And I think some people aren't really as in touch with that as you are. It's powerful and it's healing. And for anyone who wants to be either in a relationship or have better relationships, this is such a great tool for you to use and digest.
I just want to thank you for your acknowledgement and reflection of it and how it's useful. I'm really happy to hear that.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, my pleasure. The masculine feminine duality is a common topic in your work. And why do you feel that's so important for people to understand and kind of grasp?
Well, on the one hand, we're living in the age of robots where everything is neutralized. And I think there's some trendiness around like, oh, it doesn't matter. Let's just neutralize it all. And then we have this polarity, which is rooted in blame and separation on the other hand. And that's been going on for like since the beginning of time, probably, maybe not the very beginning. I don't know, but it's been going on forever where, we can blame men, we can blame women, we can generalize, well, all women are like this and all men are like this. And, it's actually both of the qualities are in nature. Both of the qualities, masculine and feminine, are in each of us, and they're sacred and they're required for life to exist. And they're required for us to have a thriving life and to feel fully alive. But our society isn't really talking about that very much. It's either let's neutralize it or let's separate and polarize it.
Yeah, that's what a healing thing and what a healing concept during this time, this time in society, this time politically, so many reasons why that's important. And I've coached a lot of women who tend to lean so much into the masculine of their energy, and they have a hard time staying in and being in relationships. And I was once actually hired by a dating app to coach these like high powered, high executive, very well off women who keep emasculating men and just can't get a second date. And like, to your point, it's like there's just so much of that. I wish we had these books available for them back when I was doing that work.
Yeah.
But any guidance, I mean, obviously read your books, but any guidance for the very strong women out there who are wanting to balance out that energy, which doesn't necessarily mean soften up, right? Like what does that mean for them?
Well, I've been one of those women, so I've had to learn through my own life. And what I want to say is receiving is an empowered act. Receiving isn't just getting invaded, right? Like being floppy and I don't care, whatever you want. Yeah, whatever happens to me is cool. No, receiving is being so attuned to your feeling and sensitivity that you're able to say yes, please, or no, thank you, that you're able to respond accurately to the moment. And then literally in Aikido, we learn skills to receive techniques. So we learn falls and flips and different things that are really, really fun. And if it happens to me and I do it, it's a two-way street where I'm choosing it. It's not just, I'm not a victim. And so for the women that think, oh gosh, if I'm receptive or if I'm soft or sensitive, then I'm going to die. It's actually the opposite. If you're not receptive, you're more likely to get hurt or not get what you want because you're not participating.
Yeah. Yeah. And, in your book, you have writing practices after so many of the chapters. And there's one on page 93 around developing sensitivity. And you say, have you ever learned the hard way that you were being insensitive or that your actions caused harm? Described what happened and what you learned. And then you go on to ask, did you ever change course and become more or less assertive as a result of observing what was needed in the moment? Describe. What great exercise. And you end the chapter with sensitivity is not about being nice. It's about being aware. It is what fosters a highly dynamic practice or life as we move through with whatever comes our way.
Mm-hmm.
Sensitivity is a superpower.
It's a total strength.
Oh, this was such a fun chapter. When you wrote about the game of manipulation versus the art of love. Right? That's one where it's like, read this twice, like pay close attention, right? Because you don't just want to like read a headline and then go, okay, I'm going to just do what I need to get what I want, right? And that's not it. Can you talk a little bit about that? The difference between the two?
Right. Well, I would say the bottom line, kind of the key difference is, are you coming from giving versus taking? Which is a concept I bring up a lot in the book in different contexts. But when you're manipulating, you're taking. You're like, I want to get what I want. And if I tell the truth, I won't get what I want. So I'm going to distort the truth. So that is manipulation versus the art of love. Sometimes, certain personalities, if you're just straight up direct with them, you won't get anywhere. It won't work. So you have to come around the side door. Maybe you have to find another person to talk to them, or maybe you have to use playfulness and little joking, or maybe you need to kind of pull back so that they come forward. And if you're doing that to increase the flow of love and life force, if you're doing that because you know they're capable of more and you see an artful path to invite them into more, that is coming from giving. And that's what I would call the art of love. And I think relationships actually require this. It's very rare that we can have a healthy, especially long-term relationship where we don't need to do some kind of art, because we all have wounds and we all have flaws and we all have rough edges that, we need each other to reflect, to help us come up to a higher octave of relating and being.
We do. Yeah, that's a really good point. And, I've been married since 2011, and I reflect on so many times where, one, I get to take responsibility, where when I wanted something my way and I did what I needed to do to make it my way, and how that just feels harder. It just feels harder than practicing this dance of love, of just honest, gentle communication, being a receiver, and just talking and playing and feeling. It's really a feeling in your body. And that's one of the cool things about comparing and describing the Aikido moves to relationship conversations, is like you feel it in your body when you're about to speak to your partner and it feels like you're going to get resistance. And then do you feel yourself lean in or back up, and one of the things you talked about in the book is like if you're, it's the perfect distance, right? And we're talking energetically too, because if you're too close, how are you going to get any traction, right? And if you're too far away, you're so vulnerable. And people sometimes think it's the opposite, right?
You can't feel what's happening. So you're out of touch. And that's, maybe there's somebody that you're maybe doing a project with and you don't know what's happening. And then everything gets messed up because you're not in enough communication, versus too much is like, if I text you every 5 minutes, Elysia, are we on some podcast here? Are we on for the, are we on? Are you recording? What should I wear? That's too close.
It's too close. Yeah.
I do want to add something before, versus as far as the art of love, and you mentioned sometimes with your husband, you want to get it your way. Like sometimes we don't have the best idea. Sometimes we think we do. We're like, if only I can get him to show up at his best. And meanwhile, we're like, there's a blind spot. So it's not always you helping any of us. It's not always the other person. Sometimes it's us. And that's where the art of empowered surrender or receiving comes in. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't have the best idea. The best idea is to roll over there and thank you for leading me there, and I'm going to willingly do that because that allows us to have the most fun together.
Yeah. And thank you for that reflection, because sometimes we forget that we don't have the best ideas because we think we know what's best for us. We definitely think we know what's best for us. We often assume we know what's best for the other person, but many times that thinking of what's best for us isn't what's actually best for us as adults, right? We're coming from a place of what was best for me as a wounded child, and that's how I'm acting out and treating people in relationships. And I've even heard people say that if someone was in even like a bad parent dynamic, just a really difficult relationship in high school or out of college, that can so often shape how we behave in relationships as adults, and I see people in my life who are in their 40s and 50s, and they're still acting like teenagers, not in the fun way, right? And like how they respond and get into the drama and just want the attention. And like, that's not how we create harmony.
Totally. I've seen people into their 70s and 80s that do that.
Yeah, big time.
Hopefully through the work that you and I are doing, more people will have that opportunity to take a look and go, oh, maybe there's a better way to relate.
That's right. That's right. And you often talk about manifesting, and you talk about it in a way that is really refreshing and unique. And on page 156 in the written book, it says, don't want it, create it. And you talk about your manifesting workshops and kind of these guided practices. And so without me reading into the book, you say release all wanting energy around the goal, positive emotions assist us, but wanting is a slippery slope. So can we talk about that wanting, versus like how we truly create?
Well, to me, wanting implies separation. So as soon as I want something, it's outside of me and I'm chasing it. and I'm pulling and trying to like grasp at it. And so it's about owning it. And literally on the Aikido mat, I remember so many times where I'll do a technique really well and my partner will go, whoa, like that one was great. What did you do? And each time I've been asked that question, the answer was the same. It was, I believed I could do it. I didn't second guess it. I just was like, yeah, here we go. I'm doing this. And I think life is like that when we're just, yeah, I'm owning it. I'm embodying it. I'm not questioning it. I'm not chasing it. I'm not grasping. The idea that the universe is already inside of us, that we are infinite beings and we are, already one with the universe. That's part of the Aikido message. And I think part of the spirituality that you and I have maybe practiced. Once we have that, then yeah, you can, it's easier to quote unquote manifest because you're relating to it inside versus outside.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a great distinction that if we're wanting something, it means we don't have it. And when we embody already having it, then it appears. And one of my earliest teachers, Trish, she had taught me desperation cancels manifestation.
Absolutely.
We can talk about that in relationships too. I think for both of us.
Some of the listeners or viewers right now need to just take an exhale and just let all the desperation drain into the earth.
Yeah, right. It's that universal law of reach and withdraw. We know about the law of attraction, that what we focus on expands, and just how we just said, embodying and being and believing that it's already ours. But there's this idea of reach and withdrawal that when we're grasping something, just like the example you gave before, I'm texting, I'm thinking you. You talk a lot about that in your last book on relationships too, that when we're just like, we don't even have to be texting them, right? Like you're theorizing, and I agree with you. Like, even if we're just thinking about them all the time, it creates that withdrawal feeling from them.
Yeah. They don't like people. Sometimes women will say, well, why isn't he reaching out? I'm like, well, you're thinking about him constantly. You're in his head. He doesn't miss you. He doesn't need to reach out.
Oh, can we talk about that for a little bit? Because I think it's really going to help people. Okay. Just like, I just want you to teach a little bit more about that too. Because then I can hear my audience going, well, how do I stop thinking about them? Right. So let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I have been through that too. And what I find works really well is sometimes you have to pick an image to replace the image that, let's say you're thinking of a past partner who ghosted you, let's just say. And you can't stop and you're just like, I'm trying, but I can't. So in my experience, what will work better is to have a replacement image to think about. Maybe you think about something pleasurable. It could just be a picture of nature. It could be a picture of you with somebody new. It could be whatever's going to be interesting enough to get you off of that. So that's one tip.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And, you stay with that, you visualize it. And, there's nothing wrong with like a slight distraction. If this person or this obsession over thinking of this person or this situation over and over is making you miserable, right? It's a choice to stay there. And so many people think that they're not making a conscious choice about what they think about all the time. But after a certain point, yes, you are, because you have a tip like Anne just gave you, or you're empowered to be mindful in the moment and go, ooh, I just want to feel better. I want to make a different choice.
I think ultimately there's always something deeper if there's a situation like that. Like there's a deeper reason, maybe a childhood pattern that you're reliving. But in order to get to the deeper thing, I think you have to sometimes pull out the Band-Aid and at least get you out of survival. Because to me, being in that loop of obsessing over something that's not making you happy is a survival place. And it's hard to heal from that place. That's why I tell clients, don't call me when you're in a crisis, because usually people can't hear or receive much of anything in that moment. So I'm like, go get grounded first. I don't know, whatever you need to do, get some sleep, eat some food, try to shift some, and then come a little more open, because you're not going to get a good result until you're open.
There it is. Yeah. And, I went live on TikTok last week, and I did a thing that I was just going to do live readings, and I just wanted to play, and I just wanted to be in service, and it was fun, and I didn't know what to expect. And the majority of the people who came on were asking, does he love me?
Oh my
Is
God.
he thinking about me? Right?
Yes.
It's like, ladies, you're amazing. Like, don't worry about this fucker. You know, it's like this
I know.
hundreds of these comments, Anne, and I was like, wow. And it helped me to reconnect with how the majority of people feel, because it's been so long since I've been in that state. And there were many times in my life where I absolutely would have been on the other end of that, going, oh my God, is he thinking about me? Does he miss me? Does he miss me? And, you know, you've done so much work on yourself and in your life. And now as a teacher in relationships and communication and just being conscious around this stuff. And I have too, thank God. But so many people are still suffering so much. And I hope and just wish for them to find this episode, to find your books, and to just remember who they are. They are not just a piece of this relationship that someone else is in control of, because that's what it seems like they think.
Yeah, they've put their power outside of themselves instead of in their own center, in their own space. Now you get why I de-emphasize the whole psychic, the concept of psychic work, because that's where a lot of people, that's what they think. I worked on a psychic hotline for a brief period of time, and I just could not, the level of questions and the interest in what I had to offer was just not there.
Yeah. I remember asking you once how to deal with a question like that. And I think the example you had given me at the time was, you know, if someone's asking, am I going to get this job? Not everybody like wants the yes or no answer, right? They think they do, but you had such beautiful guidance with such grace, you know, which was, if you're asking this question, what is it about the job that is calling you? Like, I would ask you, do you really want this job? And where is it a fit in your life and in your heart? And like, it's so important for us to pause like that and just reflect back and ask ourselves, is this what we really want?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, if, let's say, these women that are asking you, does he love me? Does he think about me? If you ask, do you really want that guy? Would he make your life better? The answer would be no. If they really got honest.
Right. Right. Wow. You know, a lot of people are like, they feel all this energy in their body, and they're looking for some sort of somatic practice or something. Like, should they take a dance class or this or that? You know, what is it about, we could say Aikido specifically, but just martial arts in general, that you would recommend that brings healing or awareness in a way that somebody might not expect?
I think the number one thing is it requires you to be in your body. So, you know, a lot of sports will do that. Yoga might do that. But I like Aikido because if I'm not present, I can get hit. I can get hurt. And so I actually have to be in. And when I leave class, I feel switched on. You know, and nowadays I'm in my body more often than not. But I remember back in my 20s, it would be dramatic. I would leave class and go, oh, like the colors are brighter. I'm all here. And when you're all here, you know, you can defend yourself, and you can also experience so much more of the goodness of life.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things, like one of the tips you gave early on in the episode about grounding, you know, visualize your tree trunk and whatnot, is creative people and spiritual people tend to leave the body because it doesn't always feel good here. And, you know, one thing I've learned so well from you, and that you talk about a lot in all of this content, is to choose to be grounded, to choose to be here. And ultimately, that's how we create our lives. And, you know, you just gave that example of leaving class and like, oh, wow, now I'm really here. But what does it look like, Anne, to live a fully embodied, grounded life the majority of the time? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Let's manifest that for everybody who's listening.
Yeah. So I think in terms of living all the time in a centered and embodied way, it's very rare that people do so. And I think we believe we can get away with it. So people are going to work halfway there or going home to their spouses, and they're not all present, and we're texting and we're distracted so much more than ever. And we think it's okay. And on one level, culturally, maybe people are accepting us this way, and we're getting away and we're getting through through life. But on an energy level, when we are so distracted, we're vulnerable. And so it's like if you were to leave your house and you leave the doors and windows open and you leave for 3 months, don't be surprised if you come home and homeless people have moved in. It was available. And our bodies and energetic fields are like that. If we're not in, whatever's around is going to fly in because you create a vacuum. And that's how also on the opposite, when you let go of something you don't need, that creates a vacuum for the good. But when you leave in an unconscious space, when you're in pain or I don't want to feel that, or, oh, I'm just going to go and find what do you call that? Greener pastures over there in a fantasy, you're going to have to deal with what comes in, and it's probably not going to be something you wanted. And on the Aikido mat, same thing. If you're distracted, you get hit, you get hurt. So being embodied all the time is just so much more fun.
Yeah, and I've found, thank you for that. I've really found as I go deeper and deeper into my spiritual practice and just wanting to live a more peaceful life, that the more distracted I feel, the more annoyed I feel, where previously being distracted all the time was normal. And now my tolerance for it is not good, which is fine.
You're distracted, you can't deal with anything. Like there's no room for any new input, which is why we don't receive sometimes because we're already full, we're already stuffed, or we're not present and we're accurate that we're vulnerable and we're accurate that we shouldn't receive anything more. But when we get present, then we can deal with things. Things are hard.
Right.
You're lovely at that. You're lovely at, you're really good at living like, oh, that doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah, I really do try. And part of it is just choosing a mindful way of living and wanting to be present. And I spent so much of my life not really wanting to be in my body, feeling uncomfortable with my body, even judging my physical body. I had an eating disorder when I was in middle school, and I was very, obsessed with what do I look like? And, do guys like me? And then being an actor in my early 20s, does the industry like me? And there was just all this pressure all the time, and so the idea of really being rooted in the physical body and being okay being here was a learning curve. And I don't think it was until I got cancer that I chose to be in my body because I wanted to be alive. And I wish that not everybody has to go through such an extreme thing or go through trauma or illness to choose to be in their body. And, in so much that I've learned from you and what you share in your books, the more we are present in our body, the stronger we are physically and the more connected we are to our sensitivity and spiritual practice and intuition.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And many people do need that kind of a wake-up call, unfortunately. Not everybody, but it's common. Remember this one day in yoga practice years ago, and I just had this like, oh, this is what my energy feels like in my body. And it was this bliss moment. And there was nothing special going on. I was like in a warrior two or like, average yoga pose. But it was just the accumulation of all the embodied and spiritual practice I had done. There was this kind of crescendo. I was like, oh, why would I ever choose anything but this? Because this is natural.
There it is, right? And our soul just was here to have a human experience. So why are we trying to eject it? Why are we trying to force that?
Well, part of why we're here in the body is to have challenges so we grow. So I do get it. It does take discipline to go, nope, I'm going to stay, because if we don't stay, it's worse because we're here.
That's right. A lot of people have a hard time with discipline or even the word discipline. And we've talked about this word on my show a couple times. And I remember Cindy Yantis had said to me, what if you replace in your mind, and this may not fly with martial arts, but she's like, what if you replace in your mind discipline with devotion? How can you have a devotion to this discipline? How can you fall in love with how strong you become in choosing this pattern for yourself or this new strength for yourself? What's your thoughts on that?
I relate with that so much.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, when I get on the mat each day that I teach, I sit there before I go and bow in with the class and I thank my teachers and I feel the guides of the Aikido masters that have gone before me. I feel that they have my back. I feel our whole space protected and infused with their presence. And then we start. And when I went through, my dojo closing when I was a student at a different dojo, it closed during COVID, barely reopened. Then I had to start going to Florida, find a teacher to sponsor me, got my black belt, started a dojo. I mean, that wasn't just discipline, that was devotion. And that was feeling like there's something bigger than me that I'm being asked to do. And I had to let go of ego. And on another, you might think of letting go of ego as like, okay, I'm not important, but it was both letting go of any places where it was my small self, my needy self when I say ego. But it was also when I let go of ego, I got bigger because it's not just me, it's something more. So absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. We can all take a page from that, seriously, because that idea that we can grow through just going inside and going, what is it that I want to be devoted to? This is how we choose our life. This is how we create our life. And so many people are floundering in their zone of competence or incompetence, or even their zone of excellence, not fully embracing the zone of genius, because it's not even that they're scared and they don't know what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And
And they're in a familiar pattern. They're in a familiar vibration that it's scary to go out of, even if the out is better.
yeah, right. And it's okay to not know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
It takes practice and time and sometimes failure and lessons and just recalibrating your energy and your body to go, wow, not only is this like what I require, this is what I desire, and this is what I choose to be devoted to. And if we go back to the manifestation conversation, it's like, this is who I believe I am.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then be that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think some people, they try to get all the answers now. They try to get the big picture, like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Or what do I want to do? And if they could just take it back like many, many notches and just go, okay, what small thing do I know that I like or don't like? Then they can start to find the way to the big answer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. And in, I think, all your books, you have these journal prompts and these inquiries at the end of most of your chapters. So you really do walk people through this step by step. So for everyone listening and watching, you're not doing it alone. You have these guides, you have these audiobooks and these actual books, and you have these beautiful classes that you can go and participate in. So just keep going, keep dreaming, keep allowing yourself to become whoever it is you are meant to be. And Anne, you have been such a beautiful example for all of us.
Thank you, Dawn. Yeah, thanks for having me on here today.
Oh, you're welcome. So as I mentioned, Anne's website is anneobrienliving.com, where you can check out her books, her classes, and everything that she is up to. And before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to say or share or leave our listeners with?
You mentioned events coming up, and I believe around the time this airs, I'll be about to start those events. So I'll just mention that those are in Carbondale, Colorado, August 8th, Durango, I believe August 17th. Check my website. And then Boulder, Colorado on September 11th. So love to see anybody who's in those areas. Or if you have friends in those areas, just send them our way. We love it.
We do. We do. And if you're finding this episode after those dates, just check Anne's website to see where she will be next.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, love. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. To connect with me or my guests, visit thebrilliancemethod.com or check out the episode description on the platform. I'd love to hear how this episode inspired and motivated you, so be sure to leave a comment, 5 stars, and don't forget to follow or subscribe.